Welcome, everybody. It's always fun to see the number just keep going up.
I know, I never know when to say.
I know, and it's like good afternoon for, I guess, our East Coasters, and good morning for our Pacific Coasters. And if you're Mountain and Central, I guess you're maybe getting ready for lunch. Um, Thank you guys so much for coming. I like to have a really active chat as we go through this. So why don't you, as you're coming on, maybe post like where you're from, what your weather's like. Is it back to school time? I'd love to just start seeing the chat fill up and see where you're at, you guys. I know we've got Rachel. She's in California. I am in Denver. It's been absolutely gorgeous here. Jennifer, you're in Atlanta. Hey there. Oh, Rainy in Chicago. Hey, Phyllis, it's great to see you. Hey, Cecilia. Oh, you're in Denver too. Well, hello, neighbor. All right, we got Christina in Sarasota. Raining and freezing in Steamboat Springs. Goodness, Christine. Well, it's gorgeous in Denver. Um, Ellen is in Manhattan. Cecilia. Alyssa's in Chicago, South Texas. Georgia, Renee Walker. We've got Sarah who's in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. It's hot. Oh man. All right. Sag Harbor, New York, Manhattan Beach. Man, I wish I was in California right now next to the beach. That would be amazing. Sarah's in Richmond, Virginia. We got Philadelphia, Charleston. My gosh, Rachel, you guys have had so many people on here. I love it. Hot and humid in Florida, Chicago. Okay, so we've heard where everybody's from and kind of what the weather's like. It sounds like it's kind of hot in the south right now and maybe gloomy or cold in the middle of the country. Is it back to school time for you guys? Are you guys sending off kids to college, kids to high school, elementary, preschool? I just sent my daughter off to her first day of high school today, so that's definitely on my mind and heart. Okay, yep, we've got school going on here. That's awesome. Love it. Empty nesters 3 times. You're free. I love it. I don't even know what that's going to be like. My schedule is so filled with elementary school and high school and sports right now, but I do look forward to maybe a little breathing room at some point. My kids are grown, totally miss these days. Yeah, the other day when I went from uh very, very, very hot August day to standing in the rain during a 1 hour soccer game and then being on lightning delay all in the same. I have to pack all of the clothes here. I'm sure all of these people in Colorado understand this. You have to have your winter coat and also your sunscreen ready all in the same day. No kids yet, but one on the way. Oh, congratulations, Ellen. That's so exciting. Oh, Christina, you also have a freshman. Maybe we can compare notes after this. I keep asking people, like, how do you prepare for a freshman in high school? And they keep saying, oh, just get ready. And I'm like, I know I'm asking, like, how to get ready. Like, how do you do that? Like, what's my task list? What do I need? And there's really, no checklist, I guess. Ooh, Jane is going to Turkey and Greece in
Just yeah,
September. Love it.
hilarious.
Just pray. Oh gosh. Okay. I'll take that as a positive, but yes, definitely.
All right.
All right, are we ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Thanks for all the active chat, everybody. I'm going to kick things off and then I'll pass it back to Erin. But hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Wagman. I'm from Studio Designer. Welcome to the Work of Design Live from Studio Designer. We're the industry's leading project management, time billing, and accounting platform for the interior design industry. Thanks so much for joining today. At Studio Designer, our mission is to really empower creativity by creating design business management solutions to help designers see their full potential. We launched this webinar series to share design business advice, best practices, and encourage knowledge sharing in our community. To deliver the very best content, we're partnering with thought leaders and experts in the industry to share their expertise on running design firms and growing our just collective knowledge. I'm so thrilled to introduce one of our close partners, Erin Weir, co-founder of the Pearl Collective, who'll be speaking with us today about using effective time management strategies to run a more profitable interior design business. A little bit about Erin and Pearl Collective. Erin's the VP of Sales and Marketing at Pearl Collective, which offers one-on-one VIP coaching and consulting services to professional designers and firms, mastermind groups for CEOs and second in command, online courses and programming, business tools and documents, and live events across the US and internationally. Utilizing highly developed strategic financial, marketing, organizational, and human resources evaluations, Pearl Collective clears the path for clients to radically improve their businesses and achieve financial success, attain business and personal goals, and work more efficiently. Pearl Collective does it all, and they are a fantastic group. So, Erin, we're so excited to have you with us, and gonna pass it over to you to get into the presentation today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Rachel. I know we appreciate our partnership with Studio Designer, and I feel like we get to do so many adventures together in this world of serving the interior design industry, which are pretty sure the most creative people on earth. So really excited to be here today. And we are going to talk about your time, and that time is money. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and get started. So what we're going to learn today is we're going to talk about becoming aware of how you spend your time. Billing and tracking time is essential to the success of your business. The cost of interruptions and time blocking, which equals freedom. And then finding the leaks in our time, especially when it comes to that billable time. So we will go into our first slide here. So human time and attention is our most valuable asset. I love this quote. And, you know, as we are learning more and working more with AI and all sorts of different types of technology devices that are either helping our life or bogging us down with a little bit of addiction when it comes to those dopamine hits and how we love to use those phones and all of the things that have an Apple on them. But what we have to do is we really have to first become aware of how we spend our time. Okay. So does everybody on the call have one of these cell phones, right? Okay. So I'm going to give you the iPhone directions. And if you have another kind of phone, I'm sure it's a very similar path. Okay. And it's because I'm an iPhone user. I know there's Samsung. I know there's all these other things. So it's not one over the other. This is just the path I'm going to take you on. So go over to settings on your phone. And this is an exercise. So I need you guys to participate. Okay. So go to settings. And I'm going to do this as we go through too, so I can also see what my story is. So we've got settings. And then go down to screen time. It's going to be in the second section there under focus. Okay. And look at the number that is associated with your daily average. Okay. There's probably an hour and a minute. And then it's going to show you, is it up from last week or is it down from last week? Okay. So if everybody's there and you feel comfortable, feel free to just type in what that average is. And it might be a little bit of a scary number. It might be like, no way do I spend 4 hours a day on my phone, right? Okay. 47 minutes. Cynthia, I love it. Renee, 4 hours, 21 minutes. I hear you. I'm there. Melissa, 4 hours, Michelle, 6 hours, Ellen, 3.5. This time, like, it's crazy how much time we spend. And whether we're using it for our main communication tool and we use it as like Slack on our phone, or if we are scrolling social media all the time, or maybe you're just simply in charge of social media and you're on it all the time. There's a lot of different ways that we use our phone. But this is eye-opening, right? Because if we think about it, what if you could just save 1 hour of time a day? So we take that 3 hours and 55 minutes and bring it down to 2 hours and 55 minutes. If we multiply that by 7 days a week, that's almost a whole workday, right? So if you could just eliminate that 1 hour of screen time per day, you could actually gain back a whole 7-hour workday, or 7 hours to exercise a little bit more, spend more time with your family, spend time reading on something that you're really interested in. Maybe be able to actually have a hobby. So this was a big eye opener for me when I was working with um, this expert, Rob Kresak, and I'll have the studio designer team post my podcast that I did with him a couple of years ago. It was on breaking your smartphone addiction. And it's a great chat. There's some really good tips in this about how you can kind of like we're going to use our phones. That's why we have them, right? And they give us so many great avenues to be who we are today. However, there are things that you can do to kind of minimize making this thing so attractive. There's a reason that it, like, mine never shuts off, right? It's you can see my children the time, and it's never black. It gets brighter at night, so it's more attractive, and I want to pick it up more. There's all these psychological things that people that are creating apps and creating these phones are doing to keep us there. It's kind of like spending our time in a casino. There are no clocks. The lighting is the same way. The lighting is, you know, a certain tone. The wayfinding is you have to walk through all of the other parts of the casino to get out of it, right? And so they're finding ways to keep you there and not know how much time is passing by. So it is important that we become aware of how we're spending our time. Just our use of devices is just one way that we can kind of look at that. We can also take a look at, like, how are we spending our time during our workday? How are we spending our time outside of work? And what are our priorities? So it's important to think about setting up rules and boundaries, especially when it comes to your phone usage. I think a great start is cutting back by 1 hour a day. That's time that can be better used with family and friends, or just exercising, or using time on a meaningful project. Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah, and Studio Designer posted my link. And so over at Pearl Collective, Gail and I have a podcast called Creative Genius. Gail has been on fire lately with podcasting. So I want to give you just that direct link because it's kind of deep into our podcast. But that's a great resource if you're looking for just a great education to listen to on the road, or on your walks, as you are listening to podcasts. Okay. Next up, we are going to talk about billing and tracking time. So billing and tracking time is essential to the success of your business. And Jane, that link is up in the chat. So if you just scroll up to like 11 a.m., that's where that link is, that Studio Designer posted. You can also go over to thepearlcollective.com. We have a section that's called podcast in our menu, and you can search for Rob over there, but this direct link is probably easiest. So let's go back to this. Billing and tracking time is essential to the success of your business. So who here tracks time spent on their business? You want to just fill up my chat and let me know who is tracking their time? Okay. Yes, reluctantly. Dana, you're doing it. I appreciate that. Lori tries. Okay. I love the honesty here. I started charging flat fees so I don't have to track time. So we should talk about that, Sarah. just because you're charging a flat fee doesn't mean you don't want to track your time. You've got to know how long it takes to do those tasks or design those specific rooms so that you really have the right flat fee for your business, right? I try, but I'm unsuccessful. I keep track of my time and the lead designer, and then I also check other designers to send it out to clients per month. Yes, but not accurately. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how an interior design firm makes money. We make it in two ways, okay? And this slide shows this. We make it both in product and we make it in, so selling product and selling our time. So typically when it comes to overall revenue, 60 to 80% of that is going to be from product sales, and 20 to 40% of that is going to be from selling your time, okay? So, and I just want to go back to the basics here for a minute so that we're all on track on why this is so important. So the second image that I want to show you here is how a design firm makes money and what happens with the profit that comes from the revenue coming in. So we have made our revenue from time and product. And then once that revenue comes in, we have to pay out our cost of goods sold, which is usually 45 to 55% of that revenue. We've got to pay our overhead. We've got to keep the lights on. We've got to pay our staff and pay ourselves. So that's usually 30 to 45% of the revenue coming in. And then the last piece that's left over is the profit, right? And that's usually 10 to 20%. But even with that, we have to set aside 33% of that profit for taxes. And we've got to set another 33% of that profit for reserves for the business fluctuations, because goodness, we know that there's a lot of fluctuations that we've all have to encounter based on the time of year or based on the year. We've certainly gotten to see those fluctuations from 2020 to present in the last 4 years. And that's been certainly something that's been enlightening and interesting for me to learn from as a professional. And then the remaining 33% is actually the money that can either stay in the business, you can give raises, you can give bonuses, you might be able to use that for another part of your incentive program for your employees. And so, it's crazy to think about how much revenue you can bring in, but then once all of the bills are said and done and paid, where that profit actually has to go to. So this is why it's so essential to track your time daily. To be honest, it really should be required by all team members, whether you're doing a flat fee or an hourly fee. And then from there, time tracking really should be reviewed each week. So what one of our coaches does, we have a staff of coaches over at Pearl Collective that work with interior design business owners. And what one of our coaches really recommends for her team is all hours for the week and tracking are due by the end of day on Friday to be able to pull a report on Monday. And I know almost everybody here probably does like a Monday morning or a Monday all day meeting to go through all of the projects that you have that are happening, all of the different client projects that you're working on, to see what's happening with the project, see what the priorities are for the week, delegating out tasks and who's doing what. But what I'd like to encourage you to do is, as you're starting to track your hours or track your hours more accurately, to take that Monday AM weekly client meeting and really also review the planned billable hours versus the goal for the week. Are you hitting your billable target for the week of how many hours you need to bill out? Because that's going to go right back over to bringing in the dollars for your time. And the other thing that you can take a look at is, are you hitting the project hours versus the budget? Where are you landing per project? for the Smiths residents. If you have budgeted a certain amount of hours, where are you at out of those hours for the project? And are you on track for that? And so this is really helpful because it's going to help you see if hours need to be added, billable hours need to be added for the week, which I am sure is not usually the case. But also as the owner of the business, you can also see like, hey guys, like I physically on my own can't bill out 40 hours this week. I have other projects and tasks as the owner and CEO of the company that I have to work on. And so it also gives you a good gauge of what can be delegated to other team members. So any questions on that? Let's see, I'm just gonna go back over to the chat here. I do my best time tracking, but find it hard to keep track of where I tracked it. Okay, we're gonna talk about that. Trying to be consistent, that's great, yes. Reluctantly tracking time, I keep track of my time. And oh, I think I already read that one. And the lead designer, and then I also check the other designers to send it out to the clients each month. Some of the youngest, grooviest, I mean, we work with all sorts of different types of designers, and it doesn't matter how you do it, it's just what works best for you, right? So we have some people, I was gonna say some of the youngest and grooviest that I know, they have a spiral book that they have their pencil out and they are tracking their time on a sheet every single day of what they did. I'm going to talk to you about time blocking, which is a great tool for time management. And I literally could tell you, I've worked with Gail Dobie now for 19 years. I like to say that I started with her when I was 5 and she was like maybe 10, just to keep us extra young and cute. But I could literally pull up her Google Calendar and tell you exactly where she was on July 7th, 2007, because she has always blocked her time on her calendar. So we're going to get into time blocking. Let's see. Let me just go over to the chat real quickly here. Best practices for tracking your time. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that too. Best practices for tracking your time. It could be that you like to write it down and you turn in your timesheet at the end of the day and someone else types that into Studio Designer. It could be that there's a little cube called Timular, and that allows you to track your time based on a category. A lot of people like to use Harvest because it incorporates with project management software, where you set up different ways that you use your time and you're able to kind of have a tracker throughout the day. But it does definitely take some focus, and also realizing that as frustrating as it can be sometimes, at the end of the day, it's really going to help you make more money. Okay, I'm going to go into the next section here on interruptions. And I love this cute little cartoon that I found from monkeyyuser.com on, this guy is focused and he is making all of it happen. And then, hey, do you have a second? And all of his ideas just went away. And then when he comes back to it, it was like, what the heck was I doing? Like, I have no idea where I was in my flow of work. So let's talk a little bit about interruptions. On average, we experience one interruption every 8 minutes, or approximately 6 to 7 interruptions per hour. And that's just when we're working. That's not when you've got for the moms in the room and the dads in the room, the hey mom, hey mom, hey mom, that happens outside of work as well. And so in an 8-hour day, that totals around 50 to 60 interruptions in a day. And so the average interruption takes approximately 5 minutes to listen and do whatever you're going to do with it. And then once there is an interruption, statistics tell us that it takes between 5 to 20 minutes. In fact, I saw number 23 minutes to get back to that level of concentration that we were at prior to the disruption. So we can easily spend our entire day on interruptions and crises and get nothing done that we plan to actually accomplish. And of course, we cannot or would not want to eliminate all interruptions, but we can reduce them and take control of our time more effectively. Another study that I found actually said that interruptions can cost up to 6 hours per day within a company. And as the leader and CEO, you can potentially be interrupted up to 7 times per hour. And that really can add up at the end of an 8-hour or a 10-hour working day, whatever amount of time you work in a day. So I want to do a little exercise with you all to just kind of talk about and make a reality to how much interruptions are costing your time throughout the day. So I want you to write down or get out your calculator on that handy dandy phone of yours and put in how many interruptions you typically get a day. Just take a guess. Wild guess. Is it 20? Is it 60? Is it 120? How many interruptions do you typically get in a day? Okay. And then you're going to multiply that by 5, okay? Because it takes 5 minutes per interruption. And you're going to divide it by 60 so that we can get how many minutes for the hours per day that we get interrupted. Is everybody tracking with me here? So take the amount of interruptions you typically get a day, that number, multiply that by 5, divide it by 60. And then you're going to multiply that number by 250 for the number of working days a year, okay? And the way we got to 250 is that we have 50, we're going to basically say out of 52 weeks a year, we have 50 working weeks, which is 5 days a week, okay? Now, take that number and multiply it by your hourly rate. It's a pretty big number. I'd love to see what comes up as your calculation. Is it $100,000 that you're leaving on the table? Is it $250,000 that you're leaving on the table? Jane, 93,000. Renee, 78. Okay. This is how much money you are leaving on the table and missing out on because of interruptions in your day. Kind of eye-opening, right? Like, we're going to have interruptions, but how can we better plan our time to not be leaving so much time on the table? Or so much money on the table. Sorry, time is money. So money on the table. Michelle, good. 15, not bad, but still think of like that amazing vacation you could go on, or a couple amazing vacations you could go on for that 15K. All right, so you guys get the idea that interruptions are very costly. And so we've got to find a better way of managing our time and also setting boundaries around our time, just like we're setting boundaries around our screen time on our phones, so that we can be filling that out. Yes, and Olivia, I'll just put this little exercise in here. Click everyone. Here we go. So some things to think about. How much do you lose from being unfocused or getting interrupted? Could you maybe implement quiet time in your office to avoid being interrupted as much? Maybe you don't go into the office right at 8 or 9. Maybe you do a little work from home before you go into the office, so that when you walk in, you're going to get the rush of interruptions and excitement of the team, right? But how are some ways that you could think differently about your day so that you can have some quiet time before to get some production done before being interrupted? And then another idea is, can you teach your employees to come up with 3 answers to their questions before they even bring the question or the problem to you? And what they think the best way is to deal with it. This is a best practice that Gail and I have always had. I learned this right when I was an intern with her, that if I was going to bring a problem to her, I knew I already needed to bring 3 solutions, okay? So that allows me to think about the fastest way to do it, the cheapest way to do it, and also the best client experience way to do it. And so as you think through what those answers would be, the answer is probably right there for you. And that is a great, what is that called? That's a great way to let your clients know that or your team know that that's an expectation that you have of them. to bring 3 solutions to the problem every time they bring a problem. It also makes for easier problem solving and communication and clickety-clack as far as getting through those issues. Okay. Next up, let's go through and let's talk a little bit about time blocking. Okay. So time blocking really does make equal freedom. Okay. In the last several years ago, I've always worked for Gail, and she's always done a great job of doing time blocking on her calendar. We are always working on the entire next year's schedule, probably starting in March or April. We start working, so in March and April, we start working on 2025, so that as we come into August, we really know what our 2025 is going to look like as far as our VIP experience dates, our boardroom retreat dates, what markets we're going to go to, what days Gail's coaching, that sort of thing. And a few years ago, I went through a divorce and realized that, I mean, I was really grumpy about the fact that I was only going to have my kids 50% of the time. It was a reality, but it was something that I was like, this just sucks. Like, I don't know how to deal with this. And so my time with them obviously is always important, but it became very black and white that it was even more important than ever. And so Gail was working with me on like time blocking, Erin, is really going to help give you the freedom to see, the extra time that you can have with your kids, or the flexibility. It's going to create flexibility in your schedule so that you can really be present with them when you have them. And so, fast forward from that, I used to always get super grumpy when we would do the annual planning. Like, why are we doing this in April and March? And this is crazy. I mean, I'm all about being proactive and making a plan, but it also required me as a parent to have to work with my co-parent to figure out the days that he was working and when he was traveling and what days I was going to market. And it was just a lot to try to figure out so far in advance. And now, several years later, as we continue to go through this kind of cycle, this process that we do every year for our planning, I'm able to present the dates that I know that I need to. I mean, there's business trips or client projects that pop up, but for the most part, for my year, where I need to be that is outside of my home in my town, that I can ask for help with my kids, or periods of time that I have open to be with them, and also periods of time that I have to be the co-founder and VP of sales and marketing for Pro Collective. And so it really has created a lot of freedom in my calendaring, not only for the year, but also for my weeks. So I actually put together what a perfect week looks like for me and shared that with my team so that they understand that I am available and I am here. And I want to have direct report meetings with you. I want to be able to meet with clients. I teach our VIP experiences once a month, but I also being able to actually outline what a perfect week looks for me to achieve what I have to with my multiple job descriptions. It actually gives them the freedom of understanding where I'm at, like when I'm going to consistently be able to meet with them, when they can schedule me for travel, and that sort of thing, and so on and so forth. So we're going to get into time blocking here and talk a little bit more about that. And Renee, I'm so glad to hear that you're incorporating that in your studio because it really helps. So we're going to talk a little bit more about time blocking. So the definition of time blocking or time chunking is it's a productivity method, okay, that divides a period of time, usually a single day, into predefined units of time. And you assign specific tasks to each of those units of time. So in practice, you actually divide a working day or even a week into several blocks of time, each with their own to-do items, okay? So just like it sounds, you're blocking off a portion of your day with a specific start and end time. Sounds pretty easy, right? It looks just as simple as this graphic that I have up. You've got your focused time block. We could be working on a project, getting interrupted, coming back to a project, getting interrupted, coming back to a project, all in the whole span of an entire day. Or we could have a block of time just set aside saying, I'm working on the Smith project from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this is the intention of this time that I'm going to get done with the Smith project. I remember a couple of months ago, we went and we did an onsite with this really large interior design team, and an onsite meaning that we kind of did a deep dive into their business. And then we also not only were working with the owner and the leadership team, but we were also doing a live full day event with called an onsite with their team, bringing them up to speed. We talked about culture, we talked about time billing, and this team really needed help with being more efficient with their time. Very clear when we looked at their financials. And so we were teaching them about time blocking, and I actually put up like a Monday through a Friday, right, 9 to 5 grid, and then I put green sticky notes in the spots of time that they actually needed to be billable. And then I put blue sticky notes where it could be more like admin work or different things. And it was so interesting to see their creative director completely light up. And she's like, oh my gosh, I just realized, like, if I started doing this and I came into work on a Monday and I had 2 hours set aside for the Smith project, I could do a lot of work on the Smith project. But also what she got most excited about is if I was feeling specifically creative, I could go through and do just a bunch of creative tasks for the Smiths and still move the project forward. Or if I was feeling a little more analytical, or I could do more left brain activities, right? So also thinking about how you're blocking your time, not only for clients and projects, but also, are you clumping together right brain, like creative activities on your calendar? And are you clumping together left brain activities on your calendar? So the ingredients to time blocking are pretty simple. You basically need a calendar or a schedule. I'm a big fan of a Google Calendar because I can see the way we have our setup is each person on our team has their own Google Calendar, and I can click in and only have my own calendar with my parenting time and the football schedule and the soccer schedule at the end of the day. But I also can share that with my team so they can click on my schedule and they can see what I'm working on, if I have open time for a meeting, if I need to be able to leave by 4:30 because we have a Friday night football game for my son, what that looks like, because all of these parts of my time are important. So the digital tools really offer a lot of flexibility more than paper, but if you want to go get a planner and do your time blocking in your planner with a highlighter and colors, that's one way to do it. You can do it with sticky notes in your planner, or you can create a Google Calendar. And I think that that makes it probably the easiest way to duplicate blocks of time, repeatable time of for each week that you have. So the next step is so you've got your calendar, you're going to determine key tasks for your projects, and you're going to schedule those blocks of time. So as an owner of a business, and I'm just going to go over here to chat, Alyssa, I really like to write things on paper, but when it comes to my calendaring, I really like to use a digital calendar. I like to use a Google Calendar. I have that up all the time. I can see where Gail's at. I can see if Kristen's available for a chat. I am usually in like my calendar. I keep getting confused when I, chat with people because usually my calendar is in like October or January because I've been working a lot on our fall High Point Market events, and I've also been working a lot on some events that we're working on for January 2025. As far as my family calendar goes, I always have a big paper calendar. My son is very type A. He likes to know when he's going to dad's house. He likes to know when football practices. He just is a planner. And so visually, I try to support him in that and give him that paper calendar that's up for the family to view. Dana mentioned that they recently upgraded to Microsoft Business, and some functions, same functions pretty much available, correct? Yeah, Microsoft Business. I think Outlook has a calendar. I think the biggest thing is just being able to block out your time, right? And so I actually have 3 different calendars that are on for me. And I could probably show you my calendar maybe at the end. But I've got my work. This is Erin for Pearl Collective, like whether I'm hosting an event, I'm with Studio Designer for a webinar, I'm creating content for something, I'm meeting with Gail as co-founders to talk about our business. I also have a parenting calendar, and I share that with Hazel, who helps with scheduling on our team. So she can see when I've got school pickup and I've got school drop off. So I don't have to keep constantly reminding her like, hey, like I can't do 8:30 that day because I've got to go drop off my high schooler and my fifth grader. I also have my kids' sport teams calendars, so I just plug that in. Usually those calendars have a little iCal URL, and I plug that in, and I share that with Gail and Hazel and Kristen too, because I'm like, hey guys, like you got to know where I've got to be towards the end of the day during these seasons. Okay, so the sharing part is new and we're working on it. That's great. Okay, so back to the ingredients of how to time block. So we've got our calendar, our schedule, whether it's paper or digital. My goal for you would be digital, just because I think it saves a lot of time. It also gives you automated reminders, which is very helpful. You can also, you're going to need to determine your key projects and tasks that you want to schedule time blocks for. Maybe one of your time blocks is exercise in the middle of the day so that you don't have to hit the coffee, right? You want to be able to move your body in the middle of the day so that you're really ready for the second half of the day. That's a time block. Maybe you do that during lunch and you've got an hour set aside for lunch with a walk or exercise with lunch, whatever that looks like for you. And then think about chunks of time with the same tasks over and over. For an example, if you have a team member that is in charge of onboarding, right? And you are you've signed on several clients within the same time period, the suggestion would be like, hey, why don't you schedule all of those onboarding calls or, your work for onboarding as far as the setup for the files and the drop boxes and our internal setup for one full morning or one full day. So you're repeatedly doing the same tasks instead of, okay, I'm setting up this client and then I'm going over here and I'm working on this other thing. And then tomorrow I've got to set up this other client and then I got to go work on this other thing. Keeping all of the same kind of tasks, like analytical tasks or creative tasks, happening at the same time is going to help you keep that flow state. Also, we talked a little bit about right brain and left brain activities. So just to kind of talk about that a little bit more, the left brain is always going to be more verbal, analytical, and kind of orderly than the right brain. And it's sometimes called the digital brain because it's better at things like reading, writing, and computations, okay? And then on the other hand, the right brain is usually more visual, intuitive, and creative. And so, the left side is like, this is where our logic and our linear thinking and mathematics and facts and writing comes into play. Whereas our right side is where our imagination, our creativity, our intuition, arts, rhythm, nonverbal cues, maybe even a little daydreaming comes in, okay? So it's important to think about whether you are mostly a left brain person or mostly a right. A lot of designers are for sure right-brained, and some of us have both. And so it's important to think about how you can also clump your time with those right brain or left brain activities. And something that I have always learned from my mentor, Gail, is make time, not make a list. So when you have all these projects coming in, you might feel a little overwhelmed. You're trying to hire people, you're trying to run a business. You're also trying to keep happy clients and do incredible design work. You've got to, and we always want to, excuse me, make a list of tasks, right? But if you can actually make time instead of a list, meaning scheduling time on your calendar to get that done, like I'm going to work on that on Friday afternoon. I know that I have time to work on that project on Tuesday morning. That is better than just a list, making time to make a list of tasks. Also, when you have a shared calendar and you can click on your other team members' calendars, it allows your team members to see who's working on what and actually respect that time. So that's another way that you can get less interruptions because they can see that you are working on this project. Now, and I understand that my world might be just a smidge different because we are a completely virtual company. Gosh, we love it when we all get together and we're in person. So I understand that it's a little more challenging when you are in an actual office to be able to keep those distractions and those interruptions at a minimum. But if you can all be calendaring and time blocking, you're also going to be able to see how many billable hours your senior designer has set aside for the week. Is that enough for what the company needs to bring in for that week? Is that enough to cross the next milestone on the timeline for the project? The other thing that I love about it is if you have a calendar that is time blocked, when you're done with that activity, whether it's a client meeting or it's project work, you can actually click open that time block and make a few notes about what happened or how you spent your time on that, which also helps you with your time billing. So I know someone was asking what are some ways that you can track some of your time. That's another way. If you have your calendar time blocked, you can type in and say, hey, we had this client meeting, we discussed this, this, and this, and we also ended early, right? We ended up meeting only for 90 minutes instead of 2 hours. So time blocking isn't new. The practice actually goes back centuries. So Benjamin Franklin was one of the early pioneers, and he stuck to a strict time blocking routine or schedule. And he divided his day in several large blocks for work, planning, reading, sleeping. And so much has changed since then, right? He was in a very paper world. But today, digital devices are everywhere from our wrists. I know I've got my iWatch that helps me understand how many steps I've gotten for the day and also can help me make sure that I have a reminder that I need to stop what I'm doing soon so that I can go pick up my kiddo from school. And also, our digital calendars make time blocking easier than ever. So it's no surprise that top performers and managers of large companies use their time blocking method daily today. So I mentioned Gail. I literally could go back in her Google Calendar forever and tell you what she was doing. Like she was not in the not in the red room with the candlestick. She was, in XYZ VAP meeting with a client or traveling for work. So Jack Dorsey, he's actually the former CEO of Twitter. He's an advocate of time blocking, and he's mentioned, this is how he talks about his time blocking. So on Monday, I focus on management and running the company. Tuesday, I focus on product. Wednesday, I focus on marketing and communications and growth. Thursday, I focus on developers and partnerships. Friday is focused on company and culture and recruiting. Saturday, I take off. I like to hike. And Sunday is I focus on reflection, feedback, strategy, and getting ready for the week. Another person that has written extensively on the topic of time billing, Cal Newport, he talks about his motivations behind the technique. And he said, sometimes people ask why I bother with such a detailed level of planning. And my answer is simple. It actually generates a massive amount of productivity. A 40-hour time blocked work week a 40-hour time blocked work week done well, I estimate produces the same amount of output as a 60+ hour work week perused without structure. So again, you're going to be getting the most of your time. So Alyssa was asking, how often do you sit and plan your day weekly, daily? Okay, so we work on planning our year out. We start in March or April. We finish that work up at least by September because we've got to be able to let our clients know when events are for the following year so that we don't have everybody headed off on vacation when we're trying to host a retreat. Then also around that same, before the beginning of the year, I also give my team my perfect week, like how often I'm going to meet with each of my direct reports, when those meetings are going to happen. And just this last year, I actually opened up Mondays and Fridays, not so that I can just play, although it is nice occasionally to be able to take a Friday afternoon walk before, just to end the week. But that is already time blocked into my schedule. And then as we come into a week that I have 3 days that I've got to go to High Point, or I've got 5 days that I've got to fly into High Point and do events and come back, then we are able to see like, oh, the marketing meeting is not going to happen that week. Erin she can't teach a VAP experience that week. So it starts creating boundaries for where the open times are in my calendar. From there, my calendar is kind of set for the year, right? And then I would say on a weekly basis, I am looking at, usually on Thursday or Friday, I'm looking at what's happening for the next week just to see if there's any open times, if there's question marks on my calendars. That means by Friday, it's not going to happen the following week usually. So I'm trying to make sure that all of my appointments are confirmed, and I know where my blocks of time are for the priorities for that week. And then each day I'm looking at like my top 3 things that are important to accomplish for that day. I hope that helps, Alyssa. And Sarah said, how do you plan for delays if something you block time for does not happen? That's a good question. So I actually am doing the 75 hard challenge right now, which has several different things that I have to get done every single day for myself, which has even made my time blocking and management more intense, especially with school starting. So what I try to do is not do things up until the last minute. I'm usually trying to do project plans, which we're going to talk about project plans or timelines and budgets and how important that is. So if you have a project that's important or a client that, obviously needs attention, really laying out that timeline ahead of time so that you're understanding when the milestones are and you can work backwards in your calendar to create buffer time. And I guess, Sarah, also another thing that I'm doing is, I wouldn't call it buffer time, but I'm using Mondays and Fridays as planning time or focus time. And that's what's showing to my team on the calendar. And I get to decide what is important for that time. If I want to fill it up with meetings, I want to, meet with Rachel for a whole afternoon to talk about all the goodness between Studio Designer and Pro Collective and all the things that we could do for 2025. I can do that because I see that as an important activity for my job role. So that Monday and Friday flexibility has really allowed me kind of that buffer time to go, oh shoot, this didn't happen, but it's okay because I can finish that up on Monday morning as I head into the week. So I hope that helps, Sarah. And also, as designers, we also have to be marketing our business, right? So if you've taken our marketing masterclass, we talk about how you want to have 10 hours of marketing every single week. Whether you rain or shine, if you're busy or not busy, you need at least 10 hours of marketing every week. So a lot of designers are like, how on earth am I going to have that happen? Well, number one, it's not all on you. Okay. Number 2, meaning that you might outsource some of your social media, and that's 3 hours per week. Okay, you've got 7 left. Maybe you are networking one evening a week. Okay, well, you've got maybe 4 hours left. You're working on your website as a specific project. Maybe that's taking a couple of hours a week. So it doesn't all have to be on you, but when designers are like, exasperated, they're like, oh my God, like how on earth are we going to get 10 hours of marketing in? It's time blocking. You go through and you figure out how many billable hours do I need as the owner of the company, or how many billable hours do I need as the senior designer of this company? And then what else can I fill in around those times? All right. So as an extension of time blocking, I want to talk a little bit about creating project timelines and budgets. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir because you guys are doing this all the time and probably very well since you are here and you're using Studio Designer. But I think it's important just to talk about some best practices. So it's important that as you begin a project, you're defining clear roles and responsibilities for each project so nothing goes missed. So this is going to not only create a really great client experience, which then down the road is more work or referrals that come from that client, but also when the roles are defined, there is less wasted time on your team. People know what they need to be doing. They understand the responsibility that they have for that project. Also, thinking through each room of the project and sharing those estimated hours per room with the client. So they're understanding how many hours each room is going to take. And you won't know that until you're really truly tracking your time. So the flat fears out there, I'm not going to get into a big rumble about flat fees versus hourly. That's a discussion that we've been having for 16 years, and it continues to go on and on with our boardroom as well. It's a great discussion. I love it. But I think that even if you have a flat fee, it's really important that you're still tracking your time so you understand how long it takes for you to design a kitchen. You understand how long it takes for you to renovate a master bathroom. So you are not just leaving money on the table by grabbing a number for a flat fee and not knowing what that means behind it. Also, upfront, creating a schedule of all the meetings in advance with your clients, okay? Again, this is time blocking. This is planning out our year. This is planning out our project load. So think about what are those milestone meetings, and also how often you need to have those. And it's important to share with your client that they're going to need to be budgeting probably at least a 2-hour minimum for some of those upfront meetings that you're having with them. So they're also understanding how much time they'll need to dedicate to the project as well. And you can always use a project management software. There's a lot of them out there. We use Asana. Inexpensive. There's a lot of different ones. Easy to use. It gets basic project tasks in and assigned out to people. And also you can create templates for each type of project that you have. So again, that's another efficient way to always have your set processes and templates in one place and delegate it out with the timeline that you've set forth for those projects. Okay, the last thing I want to just talk about as we finish up here is finding the leaks for your billable income. So again, it all goes back to the time and how we're billing out our time for, how we're managing our time, and also how we're billing out our time for our business. So some ideas as far as finding the leaks of where you might have some leaky time, which also could be billable time, is standardize your time billing categories, okay? Make that easy and use definitions, create definitions that are used by all on your team. This is also gonna help with estimating your hours per room per category as you see that time billing come in, and you can really look at it per category. Less is more, so many firms track every little detail, but it really can backfire when billing clients. And so it's really best to be descriptive, but not excessive with the words that you're using. So we find that having just predefined terms of what each of those categories means is very helpful when it comes to time billing. You could also define the categories by design phase as well. That's another idea. And then at the end of each project, take a look at your billable hours and compare them to what you budgeted, okay? And calculate the hours per category to really help with future estimating. So whether you're doing that flat fee or you're wanting to give them an estimate of how many hours per room, and also flag areas of possible inefficiencies on your team. Do we need a better process for this? Why did this section take so long? Do we need better training on this piece? And that also will reveal some routine tasks that are happening in projects. And that's an opportunity for you to actually set a fixed amount of time expectation for both your team and your client of, hey, you know what, client setup takes 30 minutes. It's a 30-minute block of time that we're going to set up the Dropbox, we're setting up the folders, we're scheduling the onboarding, we're sending a welcome gift. And so there are definitely routine tasks that continue to keep popping up. And anytime that you can set a fixed amount of time to that, both in your time block and in your time billing, that's helpful. And then also review all project related tasks to see if there's something else that you could be billing for. Because again, just like if we go back to the interruptions, there could still be money left on the table, right? And so let's be actively planning after each project to check on that and see if there's anything that we could be billing for that's not billed for. So again, all of this, the dollars associated with time comes back to how you're managing your time. And I've tried to give you a few different ways that you can do that. So I think, is this question time, Rachel?
Erin, I do want to call out, we only have a minute left, and I just
Okay.
want to give us all a chance to do a quick
Sure.
poll question and also share some upcoming events, guys. As you can see on the screen, we have some fun things planned for Pearl Collective and Studio Designer. And I'm also going to list out a poll. If any of you want to learn more about either Studio Designer or Pearl Collective's range of services, please feel free to take the poll and we can follow up after. I know we're at time. We will be sending out a recording of this and really appreciate Erin, all of your wonderful advice and great dialogue with this community. Appreciate everybody. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for having me, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the open up for one more minute to let people
Sure.
do their thing, but I know people have to follow up. Oh goodness, it is the first. Yes, it is. Well, I'm sorry, guys. This was a fail on my part, but
Is it September 1st?
no, my poll questions. It's okay. We'll figure it out.
Oh.
That's what happens when I'm doing too many things at once. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.